world was a cold white. Snowflakes swirled in the wind, dancing like thousands of silent ghosts in the night sky. The road through the forest was eerily quiet, only the headlights of the SUV piercing the thick snow, illuminating the shadows between the trees. Here, Alaska showed its harshest face. The temperature was minus 25 degrees, so cold that every breath turned into thick white smoke as soon as it left her lips. The wind howled through the old pine trees, hitting the windshield as if to swallow anyone who dared to challenge it. Lauren Brooks gripped the steering wheel tightly, glued to the road ahead. She was used to the isolation of winter nights like this. Years of living in this cold land had taught her that this was no place for the weak. But tonight, something felt different. Just as she was about to accelerate home, a dark figure loomed at the edge of the road. She stopped. It stood motionless, silent among the snow-covered trees. Was it a deer or a fallen tree? Lauren's heart pounded in her chest. Instinct told her to slow down, squinting to get a closer look. The figure didn't move. But when the headlights flashed past, Lauren froze. It wasn't a tree. It wasn't a deer. It was a dog. She slammed on the brakes, the wheels skidding lightly on the thick snow, leaving long tracks on the white road. At that moment, a thought flashed through her mind. A dog? In the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night, in the deadly cold? There was no way it could have come here on its own. Lauren opened the car door, and a blast of icy wind rushed in, cutting into her flesh like sharp blades. She shivered, not just from the cold, but from the unease rising in her chest. She walked slowly, the snow crunching under her feet. The darkness swallowed her breath, leaving only the sound of the wind howling through the deep woods. The closer she got, the more her breathing quickened. And then, the sight before her made her gasp. The dog was tied to a tree, a rope wrapped tightly around its neck, frozen solid by the ice. It stood still like a statue, its entire body covered in white snow, its fur frozen into hard patches of ice, and its eyes, oh my God. They were filled with pain and despair, but there was also a small glimmer of hope, as if it was pleading with her. Please don't leave me. Lauren felt her heart constrict. Not a stray dog, not an accident. Someone had tied it up here in the cold to die alone. She swallowed, trying to contain the anger that was rising in her chest. But there was no time to be angry. The dog was dying. Lauren knelt beside it, trying to reach out to touch the soft golden fur that had turned stiff. The dog shivered ever so slightly. She froze. It was still alive, but with only a faint strength left, as if a strong wind would blow it away and it would disappear into the darkness forever. It's okay. I'll help you. Her voice was hoarse, as if the words were meant not just for the dog, but also to reassure herself. She reached out to untie the rope, but as soon as she touched it, a sharp pain shot through her numb fingers. The rope was frozen solid as steel, wrapped tightly around the dog's neck like a cruel vice. It was impossible to remove it with bare hands. Lauren frantically scanned her surroundings, trying to find something to cut it with. No knife, no scissors, nothing but a car key in her coat pocket. There was only one option. Lauren pulled out the key, using all her strength to pry open the thick layer of ice that wrapped around the rope. Her fingers ached, her nails nearly coming off as she tried to break each layer of hard ice. But she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. The dog let out a small whimper, its head tilted back, its body going limp in her arms. Lauren looked up at the night sky, desperately praying for a miracle. Suddenly, a question rang in her mind. And perhaps it is also a question for you. If you were me right now, what would you do? At this point, if you feel a pang in your heart, if you also want to reach out to save this little creature, then I believe that you are carrying within you a beautiful seed of love. People like you are the ones who make this world a better place. If you sympathize with this story, don't forget to like the video, because that small action can help many others see and feel this story. But will Lauren be able to save the dog in time? Will this little creature be able to survive the harsh snowstorm? Let's continue this journey with us. Sometimes, between life and death, just one decision, just one moment can change everything. Lauren held the dog tightly in her arms, feeling its body as cold as ice. She knew she didn't have much time left, but would she make it in time? Was there still a glimmer of hope? But before we go any further, ask yourself, if you were standing here in the snowstorm with a dying creature in your arms, what would you do? If you've come this far and are still following this story, then I believe you have a good heart. You are the reason this world is a better place. And if you want to help spread this story to more people, like this video, because maybe it will touch another heart, someone who is also waiting to awaken. Now, follow Lauren. The wind howled, and the snow swirled in the darkness, lashing Lauren's face like 1,000 icy blades. She ran, her feet sinking into the thick snow, each step like a struggle against the elements. Her heart pounded, her veins boiling under her thick coat. The dog was so light. She could feel the thin bones beneath the stiff fur. How many days had it endured in this bitter cold? Lauren couldn't think of an answer. She opened the car door, almost throwing herself into the seat, wrapping the dog tightly around her, as if the only warmth that could save it was her own. Her fingers trembled as she inserted the key into the ignition. Click! The engine roared like a wild animal in the dark. She revved the engine, the wheels skidding on the snow, but she didn't care. She had to go faster. The nearest vet was 30 minutes away, but with a dying life in her hands, every second felt like a death sentence. Beside her, the dog was still. It's breathing. Lauren blinked rapidly, trying to see through the fog on the windshield. She pressed her hand against the frozen fur, searching for some warmth. Nothing. Nothing. Lauren gritted her teeth, a deadly fear piercing her heart. She reached down, placing 2 fingers on its chest, searching for a heartbeat. Nothing. No. Lauren bit her lip, her emotions exploding like a tsunami. She pulled on the zipper of her jacket, wrapping the dog tighter, almost pressing it against her chest. No, no, no. Come on, baby. You can't give up. Her voice broke, her eyes blurred with tears. But the dog remained silent. Outside, the blizzard grew more intense. Inside, a life was silently drifting away into nothingness. But there was one thing you had to know. Humans are not always the strong ones. There are times when we can only watch a life leave us, helpless before the cruel twist of fate. But today, Lauren refused to accept that. She clenched her teeth, fighting against all the fear that was screaming inside her. No, she would not let it die. Lauren turned the heating up to full blast, running her bare hands over the dog's cold body, trying to give it some warmth. Come on, you can do it. She knew what she was doing. She was giving it faith. Do you believe that love can awaken a life? Lauren believed. And then, at that moment, a soft sigh. Lauren froze. 1 second, 2 seconds. Then, the dog twitched slightly. Lauren's eyes widened, almost in disbelief. A second ago, it had been a cold corpse. And now, its little head stirred. Lauren's heart pounded, a feeling as if it had been pulled up from the bottom of the ocean. That's right. That's right, little one. Come on. She continued to rub her cold hands over its body, her breath breaking into white mists in the air. The dog let out a small whimper. Lauren burst into tears. It was still fighting. You see, there are moments when life is just a thin thread hanging between two worlds. Some souls just need a hand to reach out, a gentle voice, a little warmth, to find their way back. Do you believe that? If you are still here, still accompanying this story, I want to tell you one thing. You are a person with great love. You are the hope of the little creatures out there. And if you want to spread this message too, like this video now, because maybe you will be the one to help awaken someone's heart. But wait, Lauren won the first battle, but will she be able to get to the clinic before it's too late? The dog's breathing is still too weak. And before their eyes, the snowstorm is only getting worse. The wind howled, the wheels crunched on the snow. Lauren's heart pounded in her chest, but most importantly, a soft whimper sounded beside her. It was a sign, a small, fragile sign, but it was enough to light a fire of hope in her heart. The dog was still fighting, and so was Lauren. But would she make it in time? If you were here, accompanying this story to this moment, you might have felt your heart beating faster, as if you were rushing through the darkness with Lauren and that little creature. And that said one thing: you have a great heart. Not everyone has the patience and the compassion to follow a story like this, but you were here, listening, empathizing, and that makes you special. Let me know what you think of this story. Leave a comment below, because I believe this story belongs not just to Lauren, but to everyone who loves. 10 minutes. Waves of snow lashed against the windshield like angry white-capped waves. Lauren gripped the steering wheel tightly, glued to the dark road ahead. There were no streetlights, no cars, just her, the snowstorm, and a fragile life lying silently in the passenger seat. She turned the air conditioning up to maximum, but the cold in the car did not dissipate. She reached out, pressing her bare palm against the small body. Cold. So cold that it was terrifying. The dog had not moved again. Lauren's heart sank. She had to do something. 15 minutes. Ahead of her, the road began to get slicker. The wheels skidded, warning her that if she wasn't careful, the car could plunge into the woods or slide into an icy pit at any moment. But she couldn't slow down. Not now. Not when her life was running out. She gritted her teeth and accelerated regardless. A flash of fear crossed her mind. What if she lost control? What if they were both trapped in the blizzard? But then a voice spoke in her head. The answer was clearer than ever. There's no if. I can't let him die. Not tonight. She looked down at the dog again. He was still, his breathing almost invisible. Something clicked in Lauren's mind. She remembered stories of people trapped in the snow, people who had nearly died from the cold, but survived thanks to the warmth of another body. With just one thought, she took off her coat, wrapped it tightly around the dog, and pressed it against her. At this moment, she no longer felt cold. She had only one goal: to keep it warm, to keep that life alive. Have you ever held a living being in your arms, knowing that if you let go for a second, it could disappear forever? That was how Lauren felt at that moment. 20 minutes. Lauren clenched her teeth, her eyes starting to sting. She couldn't cry. Not now. She had to believe that the dog was still alive. She had to believe that every second she fought was meaningful. She had to believe that she would make it in time. But what if she didn't make it? That couldn't be. Lauren took a deep breath, trying to push away all negative thoughts. But then, the dog shivered. Lauren felt it. Her eyes widened, her heart pounding like it was about to burst out of her chest. 1 second, 2 seconds. Then, it stirred. Lauren wanted to scream with joy, but she couldn't lose focus. She had to keep going. She couldn't stop. She was fighting not just for the dog, but for her own belief in miracles. 25 minutes. The sign for the vet clinic appeared in the snow. Lauren stepped on the gas, her heart exploding as she saw the bright lights ahead. She was there. A night watchman ran out in a panic when she saw her storm into the parking lot. Lauren didn't say a word, just hugged the dog tightly and ran straight inside. She placed him on the emergency table, almost choking on words as she looked into the doctor's eyes. Please, save him. Do you believe in miracles? Because right now, they are happening. But can the dog survive after all that he's been through? Will Lauren arrive in time to save a life that was almost destined to die? The journey isn't over. It's just beginning. Do you want to know where the story goes? If so, comment your thoughts now. I want to know how you feel. And if you believe in love, in the power of kindness, leave a message, because you might be the one to inspire someone right now. This story isn't over, and we know. You don't want to miss the next part. Sometimes, salvation isn't the end. It's just the beginning of a nightmare. Lauren rushed into the vet clinic, her arms tightly gripping the tiny creature as if she let go for even a second. It would vanish into thin air. Her breathing quickened, her heart pounding so hard it felt like it was going to burst. The door swung open. The white light was blinding. A wave of warmth rushed in, a stark contrast to the cold night outside. The doctors rushed in, taking the dog from Lauren. The seconds seemed to drag on forever. Lauren stood there, watching them insert IVs, check heart rates, and take temperatures. She didn't dare blink, didn't dare leave. But then, a grave voice rang out, causing her entire world to collapse. His temperature is too low. If you had been 5 minutes later, he wouldn't have made it. Lauren collapsed, breathing a sigh of relief, but her whole body was still shaking. 5 minutes. If she had been a little slower, if she had hesitated for a second, maybe now she would have lost it forever. Have you ever wondered if just a small decision of yours can change a life? Lauren did it. And you, who are still following this story, I believe you are one of those people too. You are a person with great compassion, a person who does not turn away from pain. And if this story touches you, if you believe it is worth spreading, please share this story. Because who knows, it might wake someone up. But the real nightmare has only just begun. The nurse ran in, holding a chip scanner in her hand. Lauren frowned, a feeling of unease rising in her chest. The dog had a microchip? That meant it had an owner. Any news? She asked, her voice hoarse. The nurse swallowed, then held the screen up to her. Lauren looked down, the name on the screen. Ethan Lancaster. She froze. It couldn't be. It wasn't Ethan Lancaster. He was a famous businessman, a man of status, a man with the world at his fingertips. Why would he abandon an innocent creature like this? Lauren pulled out her phone and dialed the number. She needed to hear the answer from him. The phone rang. Once, twice. Then a voice spoke, cold, distant. "Hello?" Lauren gritted her teeth, trying to contain the anger boiling in her chest. "Are you the owner of a golden retriever?" A pause. Then he chuckled, a laugh Lauren would never forget. That dog?" His voice was unnervingly calm. Lauren clenched the phone, her knuckles white with anger. "You left it out in the snow, tied it to a tree, and left it to die in the freezing storm?" Ethan sneered. "That's right. Did you know it was almost dead?" "I threw it away. It's no longer valuable to me." Lauren stood frozen. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. There was no remorse in his voice, no pang of guilt. She gritted her teeth, feeling a fire burning in her chest. "You left it out in the freezing weather and expected it to die?" Ethan laughed out loud this time. A cold laugh that cut to the bone. "That's your business. It's none of my business." Lauren hung up immediately. She didn't want to hear another word from that person. But as she turned around, looking down at the little creature on the emergency table, she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to let it go back to that person. You see, not all people have hearts. But more importantly, there are still people like Lauren in this world, and people like you. Because if you're still following this story, if you still feel your heart beating, then I believe that you are a light in the darkness, a hope in a heartless world. And if you believe that love can change the world, then don't keep it to yourself. Share this story, because who knows, maybe someone out there needs to hear it. But wait. Can Lauren keep the dog? Or will the law force her to return it to the person who abandoned it? What happens next? The weak dawn light filtered through the frosted glass, illuminating the quiet emergency room. In the space filled with only the steady sound of the heart monitor, Lauren stood motionless, her eyes fixed on the small creature on the cold, stainless steel bed. The dog was still breathing, but would it have the strength to open its eyes again? If you are still here, following every moment of this story, we believe that you are one of the few people who do not turn away from the pain of others. You are the one who always wishes for this world to be full of love. Perhaps you will be the one to make a difference, because sometimes just one person who dares to stand up is enough to change the fate of a creature. Lauren did it. And now, she is facing one of the most important decisions of her life. Can I adopt him? Lauren's question rang out, quiet but determined. The vet, a gray-haired man with kind eyes behind thick glasses, looked at her for a long moment before nodding. According to the law, if the owner has relinquished ownership, you can legally adopt the dog. Lauren took a deep breath, her heart filled with a strange feeling, as if she had just crossed an invisible threshold. From this moment on, he would no longer be an ownerless dog. He would never be abandoned again. From this moment on, he was her family. Lauren walked slowly toward the treatment table, where the small dog still lay motionless. She bent down, gently placing her hand on the soft, yet still frostbitten fur. "Can you hear me?" she whispered, her voice choked. "From now on, you will no longer be alone." And then, a miracle happened. The dog stirred. Once, then again. Then slowly, the deep brown eyes opened. A faint light, but full of trust. Lauren burst into tears, unable to contain herself any longer. It was back. It had survived. It had not given up. She bent down and stroked its head, feeling the fragile but real warmth beneath her palm. "You're so good," she whispered. "You're such a fighter." The dog wagged its tail, just a little, but it was enough to make Lauren's whole world explode with happiness. There are moments in life when we realize love has no conditions. It's not something we ask for, it's something we give. Lauren didn't need a reason to save it. She didn't expect anything in return. She just couldn't turn away. And sometimes, it's the little things like that that make the biggest difference. She sat down next to it, gently placing her hand on its warm fur, just snatched back from the dead. "We need a new name, huh?" The dog blinked, as if waiting. Lauren smiled, her grip tightening slightly. "From now on, I'm Cooper." And Cooper, for the first time since he was abandoned, raised his head, gently burying his face in her palm. This isn't just a story about a dog being saved. This is a story about love, about compassion, about the power of a person to change their fate. Do you believe that every small action of yours can make a difference? Do you believe that a life is worth more than any material thing? If this story has touched you, if you believe in unconditional love, share it. Be one-os. You might be the one to inspire someone out there. Cooper's story has a new beginning, and we believe it will continue to spread because of people like you. Thank you for coming all the way here, accompanying Lauren and Cooper through this challenging journey. If you are still sitting here, listening to every last moment, then I believe your heart is burning as brightly as the fire of love that Lauren had for Cooper. This story reminds us that compassion not only saves small creatures, but also makes us become better versions of ourselves. Perhaps somewhere in the world, there are still other Coopers waiting for a hand to reach out, a heart warm enough to warm their lives. How many points do you rate this story, from 0 to 10? If you believe that kindness deserves to be spread, please like this story and share it so that this message can reach more hearts. Don't forget, this is just one of the countless meaningful stories that we will bring. If you want to continue on a journey that is more moving, more awakening, more surprising, and more dramatic, stay tuned for the next story, one that may change the way you look at life. Are you ready